It's me again, and it's another VMAX. Oh my god, why do I do this to myself? So, this is going to be a quick video, I promise you. Just some top tips. Short story long, this bike was imported from Japan in 2016. It's a 96 vintage. The guy was the first owner when it came from Japan. It's never run quite right. Initially, when it landed in this country, the carbs were absolutely minging. Somebody went through them, got it running, he's used it. The carbs have sort of been a bit of an ongoing theme of this bike not running correctly for the whole time it's been in the UK. Anyway, it's back to not running well at all. He dropped it off yesterday. When I came to put it in the workshop last night, I gave it full choke, started on all 4 cylinders, sounded like it was running fine. I let it get a little bit of heat into the engine and I knocked the choke off, and it was immediately on 2.5 cylinders. I just wanted to show you a little bit of a top tip. No special tools required, just your fingers and maybe a bottle of brake cleaner. So what I'm going to do is, because I know it started and ran on 4 cylinders whilst using the choke, so it's running off the choke circuit in the carburettors, I'm going to try and start it, go back previous, when I knocked the choke off then, after it was running on 4 cylinders on the choke circuit, it then proceeded to lose a cylinder or 2. I'm going to try and start it without the choke, and I'm going to see which header pipes get warm, just so I can get a sense of. Bear with me, let's try and start it. Turn the ignition on. Let's make sure the choke isn't on. I'm not going to give it any throttle. I really try and get it to go without having to use any choke. Doesn't want to have it. Well, that is a single cylinder VMAX at this point. And I've just realised that I haven't got my microphone on. Can you hear me okay? Let's just get the other mic. Okay, I've got my microphone on. That might be slightly better audio now. So just to reiterate, if that's the right word, what I'm trying to do, without, talking too much, my thinking is that this is an idle circuit problem in the carburetors. So very basically speaking, there are 3 circuits in a carburetor: the choke circuit, the idle circuit, and the main circuit. There's way more to it than that, clearly, but when you do a cold start and you've got the choke open, with a lot of carburetors, you're using a separate jet in the float bowl and a separate air passageway, so you're running on a completely independent enrichment circuit. Once you're off that circuit and the engine is idling or ticking over, there's another circuit called the idle circuit in the carburetor, which consists of usually an air jet, a pilot jet, and an air mixture screw, and a passageway through the carburetor body. I'm simplifying massively. And then after the idle circuit, there's the main circuit, which consists of the slide, the needle jet, which is the little brass piece the needle slides in and out of, and the main jet on the bottom of the emulsion tube. Again, oversimplifying, but those 3 circuits, you'll use the choke circuit to start, and then you'll be running at slow RPM, you'll be running on the idle circuit, and then as you open the throttle, you'll transition from the idle circuit onto the main circuit, and then the fuel is metered by the taper on the slide needle and the needle jet size until you get to nearly wide open throttle, 3/4 throttle, and then the size of the main jet starts to. It's not a lesson on how a carburetor works, but my thinking is that there's something going on with the idle circuit. So I'm trying to get the bike to try and run just on the idle circuit, just to see which cylinder it will run on. I'm interested, if you hadn't gathered already, in feeling header pipe temperatures, so the exhaust pipe temperatures, where they come out of the engine. So I'm not using any tools, I'm just using theory, and yeah, you understand. So let's try and start this again. What I may have to do is give it a little bit of choke just to get it to initially go. What I'm trying to avoid is getting any, on the cylinders that aren't running correctly, I'm trying to avoid getting any heat in the exhaust pipes. Okay, so a little bit of choke, just initially to get it to go, and you'll actually see how well it runs when it's on its choke circuit. So it immediately comes to life on the choke circuit. But without the choke, it's very reluctant to run. Very unhappy. Let's see if I can get any indication just from that little bit of running, although it did run on the choke for a minute, if there's any difference in header pipe temperatures. So a slight bit of heat in that one. A little bit, that's a little bit hotter. You know, you could get complicated and use a thermal imaging camera, but the idea of this is, you know, you're just using your noggin and your fingers. Yeah, that one is definitely hotter. Obviously, you can't tell from the video. That one is stone cold. Tiny bit of heat. That one's quite warm. Let's go the other side. Yeah, that one's quite warm. Yeah, not much heat in that one. So it appears to be this one and its opposite number. This is left rear and it's right front. So left rear and right front appear to be the troublesome cylinders. Let's try running it a little bit more. If we can get it to start. Don't know what's going on. Like when you push the start button. He did say that he'd been doing some funky stuff with lights. I really don't want this to... Let's try giving it a little bit of choke. Chokey chokey, just a wee bit. Sort of play with the choke so it's running but misfiring. There we go. So now it's very occasionally you can hear the other cylinder cut in. So let it just run like that for a minute. Okay, that's probably enough. Let's have a feel now. So there's some warmth in that. I'm worried, you've got to be careful because, so that back one, did you hear that? That is Sizzlesville. This front one, I can touch that. It's warm, but it's not burning hot. This one, again, I can touch it, but it's not burning hot. And that one is completely cold. So the right rear is sizzling hot like you would expect. It's not running on this cylinder at all, this rear cylinder. And then the front two are warm but not sizzling hot. You get the idea. This is like stage one of it, the diagnostic process. I'm just trying to feel my way into this. I've spoken about this before, I know, but I just thought this is a good opportunity to, because I previously had it running, you know, I started it yesterday on choke and it revved up and it seemed okay, and then the moment the choke came off it was clearly misfiring, but then the header pipes were too hot to use as any sort of measuring device. And then the other thing you can do, I've mentioned this again, I know, is it's running so badly I'm probably not going to do it. But when it's idling, if you've got a misfire at idle, with these, spray some brake cleaner around the manifolds and around the V-boost and just see if you've got any vacuum leaks, because they do like to have vacuum leaks, these things. That's it for this video. I'm not going to get into another VMAX video. I'm going to pull the carbs and have a look inside, see what's gone on. These carbs have been apart multiple times by multiple people. Who knows? You know what I'm going to say next, don't you? I'm also going to do a compression test. That's my next, will be my next thing. In fact, shall I show that? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a quick compression test, especially on this rear cylinder, which is completely dead. I'm not expecting there to be low compression. These engines are pretty hard to break mechanically. Let's show you that quickly and then we'll probably call time on this video. So compression gauge hooked up. I've got, these are COP, they're coil on plug, so I've just got the low tension side of the coil just disconnected on the other 3 cylinders, just so it won't try and fire. You can, if they're not coil on plugs and you've got a HT lead and a plug cap, you can just pull the HT lead off the plug. Technically you're not supposed to do that because you're stressing the coil, so whenever you're doing a compression test, try and immobilize the ignition on the low tension, on the low voltage side of the ignition coil. Either disconnect the coil or pull an ignition fuse. Very often when you do that though, you can't crank the engine, which is a bit of a pain in the bum. So ignition on. I'm not expecting any problems, to be honest with you. Full throttle. Yeah. Loads of wind. And that's the completely dead cylinder. So as suspected, I'm not chasing a low compression situation here. I'm going to pull the carbs. You can go away and get on with your life. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon. You should know by now that it's never the end when I say it's the end. Just sharing the cleaning process. These are all clean, ready to be reassembled. What did I find? They were absolutely filthy dirty. People's idea of clean doesn't seem to be clean. I don't think people understand. Fucking hell, I sound like I'm lecturing you and I'm not, but how clean a carburettor has to be to actually function properly goes back, doesn't it, to my whole rant about ultrasonic tanks. Anyway, so they've been chemically cleaned, then they've been ultrasonically cleaned, because the chemical doesn't flush out. Basically what happens is they sit on the bench here and they get chemical flushed through them a couple of times a day for a couple of days, and you can see the varnish contamination getting washed through all the passageways. And once you know all the passageways are free and clear and you're not really getting any more varnish contamination out, then they'll go in a hot ultrasonic tank with a different chemical and they'll get rotated in the tank a few cycles to try and get the fluid up through all the passageways. Then they have a boiling hot clean water rinse, and then they get air lined out through all the passageways so that the carb body is nice and warm. Clean water washes all the whatever else is in the body away. They're boiling hot, so they bake themselves dry, and then I just use GT85 or WD-40, whatever I've got, just chase all the passageways and triple check that, you know, the fluid, the WD-40 or the GT85 is coming out of the right orifice. You get the idea. Wafflage, they're all ready to be assembled. They've ended up having got new diaphragms on all these slides. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm a massive fan of using genuine parts, but genuine parts for these are getting thin on the ground. I can't even get the jet holder gaskets genuine Yamaha at the moment. I've got a couple way up here. I've got a couple in stock, but not enough anyway. So I'm using Keister kits. They're the best of a bad bunch, really. Keister stuff seems to be alright. There's some quality control. The Tormax stuff was turned to absolute shite. Sorry, Tormax, but there's no continuity, there's no consistency with Tormax parts anymore. I think it just depends where they're sourcing them from. It used to be that Tormax bits were genuine parts in a different bag, but that seems to have changed. These are alright. I've bought these Tormax. This is an idle air cut-off valve. One of them is perforated, so I've got one new one because these are £20 a go, so you don't want to just replace them for the sake of it. Yeah, Tormax stuff, no consistency anymore. You can get a carb kit and the stuff looks genuine and perfect, and the next time you order the same kit using the same part number, it's so shit, it's not really usable. So yeah, that's a shame. So Keister, really, if you're going to buy carb kits, not sponsored in any way, but really the only way to go. Well, certainly from the suppliers I use. If you've got any other suggestions, please let me know. But yeah, there's some sort of quality control with Keister. Anyway, I'm going to get these together. I might show you it running, but I'm pretty confident on this one. They were absolutely minging, these carbs. Although, saying that, remember the other VMAX? I was confident that was the carbs. Well, it was the carbs. The carbs on the other VMAX were worse than these, and yeah, if you watch those videos, you know that hasn't ended particularly well yet. Right, this might be the end. I might show you the bike running at the end. Cool, thank you guys. Oh, if you haven't subscribed and all that bollocks, do that if you can. Thank you, bye. Funky lights in the rev counter, look. But it's lights on when the switch is off. Bizarre. Runs like a champ. I really need to do a carb balancing video, don't I? I keep promising. I'll get to it one day when I have time. Thank God, not another VMAX disaster. Right, see you soon.